Good evening, everyone, and this is, we are moving right along in our continued interviews for our Tall Grass Prairie Stories. And it is Monday night, June 6th, here in Seward County, Nebraska, and we are at the Parish Hall at St. Andrews. And tonight we are so fortunate to be visiting with Jack and Glennie Duensing of Seward, Nebraska. And they bring such a rich history and so many wonderful stories to add to this history and this culture that we're trying to show and to portray of Seward County. And I'll go ahead and we'll ask, and Jack, give me your name and your age.
Jack Duensing, age 85 this week.
Happy birthday to you.
And I'm Glennie Duensing at 85.
I married an older woman.
You married a little, okay, so not happy birthday to you right now. February. Wonderful. And I'm going to start off, and we'd like to try to build a little bit of history and a little bit of background. And when did you come to Seward County, and where from?
All right, I'd like to pick that up. I came here in August of 1945. At that point, Concordia still had a high school as well as the college, and I came up here for the high school. So I was from Bremen, Kansas, about 80 miles south of here, that German community down there. And then when I came up here, I came up as a freshman, and of course 14 years of age. So you can imagine. By the way, at that time, for my parents, this was a long trip. The longest they've ever taken, 80 miles, was a long way to drive. And I remember when we pulled up in front of Jesse Hall, it's the same building that's still there today. I could see in their faces this was really a very difficult experience. So difficult that when they saw this massive building, they were probably more afraid of it than I was, because it didn't come in. Here, this 14-year-old didn't know what to do. By the way, this was also true of our day. All my belongings were in one bag about this long. That also became my laundry bag, because most of us sent our laundry home so that we could get some food in it when it came back. But this is for Seward. But many of my friends had what we called a washerwoman in Seward. There were washerwomen in Seward who did laundry for us. But that was the beginning. But you can imagine driving up. And by the way, you didn't hug your parents or kiss them or anything. After we drove up in front, they let me get out, and they simply said goodbye and drove off. That was coming
that
to
history.
Concordia. Now let me. I'll follow that up a little bit, but I'd like you to find out how she got here.
And so you came here,
See,
not
I came
because
as
of
a freshman.
Concordia, you came as a high school.
High school.
Yes. And Glennie?
But that was all the same.
Okay.
High school and college was all the same. In fact, the dormitory had both high school and college in the same dorm. We had the same professors. And, yeah.
And then
Now listen to her story.
Well, right after high school, I took secretary training in high school, and that was it. I think that's what all the girls did, but I had no idea what I was going to do. And so it was about a month after graduation. My cousin came from Denver, Colorado, said, we're going to go to Seward because I have a job playing the organ and I don't know how. So she had to come to Seward to learn how to play the organ. And I went with her and her brother, and I got here by sitting in the back seat or the rumble seat of a Model A Ford from Gering, Nebraska, and I rode 400 miles all the way from Gering to here.
And in a rumble seat,
In
that's
a rumble
open.
seat.
That's
That's
why-
open.
That's why she still has bugs in her teeth. Sitting outside in a rumble. Can you imagine 400 miles in a rumble
There we
seat?
go.
A hat, big straw hat, you know, so
Wonderful.
not bad.
Okay. Well, I'm going to almost seem kind of rude here because we've only got 30 minutes
That's right.
storage
Keep it
time
going.
in there. Okay, and then what heritage did you come from, Glennie? What were your folks? Were they
Both my parents were Danish.
Danish?
Mhm.
Okay, and then you came to Seward in 1945, and you pretty much
No,
stayed
I didn't come to college in '49.
in 49.
Mhm.
Okay, I
Yes.
understand.
Yeah.
And your heritage?
I had a different girlfriend in high school.
Oh dear, okay then.
He's German.
Are you German?
German, yes.
German. Okay, and then I'm gonna ask just a little bit, just to
Sure.
build that background a little bit. What did your folks do for a living?
They were farmers.
Mm-hmm,
Yep.
right.
And by the way, this was really a commitment of Dad. I had 6 sisters, no brothers. And he's the one who suggested I go here to, by the way, the interesting thing, this is a compliment to the town of Seward. The people down there didn't say he's going to Concordia, they said he's going to Seward. And I worked with Concordia in recruitment all over the world. Again and again, I would go to family members and they would always say, we like Seward. That's the compliment to this town. It wasn't just that place up
And
here.
that's
but,
wonderful
yeah.
to hear. That's wonderful to hear that that's been established. What did your family do for a living?
Well, my mother was a stay-at-home mom until my brother and I left. And then she worked as a secretary until she was 85 at one of our churches in Scottsbluff.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad had 2 different occupations. His father owned a brickyard in Gearing, a very large one. There were 8 boys, and they all worked in the brickyard, and for 31 years they ran that brickyard. But during the Depression years, my dad became chief of police of Gearing, until the Depression was over. Then he went back to laying brick again. And it's interesting because our 4 sons, all in high school, worked for a bricklayer.
Oh,
Yeah,
isn't that
they-
great?
They all learned that trade here.
There we
By the
go.
way, I should have her tell you here, they were strict. There were strict rules, especially for the women on campus. I think they felt if we control them, then we control the men. What were a couple of the rules that you had to adjust to right away? Here, go ahead.
Well, no slacks, of course.
Couldn't wear slacks in 1945.
No slacks. We could wear slacks on Saturday because it was cleaning day. But it was the only time we could wear. And in going to church, of course, we wore hats
Okay.
and dresses, of course,
Mhm.
and gloves. We had to wear gloves too. They were very strict as far as our dress was concerned.
Okay. And then,
It was all right.
and then, exactly,
Yeah.
you know, that was for the day, wasn't it, in there? I do remember too then, Jack, that, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's 2 things I want you to talk about is how some of the students came to school. They
Oh,
came by
yes.
train.
Yeah, I came here, my parents brought me, and I said for them, that was the longest trip ever. But so many of my roommates came by train. And of course, that was the first time for them too. And of course, where did they all get out? At that beautiful train station down here,
Don't tell.
where, yeah, don't tell about it. That was a beautiful train station, but can you imagine, some of my friends would say this, they would get off the train there,
At
no
the
one to meet them, no.
At the bottom of 15th, Highway 15.
Down that railroad track
Uh-huh.
down there.
And Ash Street.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they would get off, no one to meet them, and they would start walking, carrying their bag, and they would ask people along the way, where is Concordia? Well, then later on, when I became active in student life here on campus, they appointed me as one of those students that would go down to meet them. So I had the privilege of meeting these people coming to campus. Yeah, so it was really a big step. But again, it was in the town of Seward, and we'll talk about that a little bit. We just really fit into this place, not just the campus. Yeah.
Then, you 2 must have run into each other on that campus. And then tell me a little bit what you guys would do Well, maybe if you were gonna go
Yeah.
out in the town, or you were gonna
Yep.
go out in a day there.
Well, one of the first places I took her was ice skating. The pond down in the park was the ice skating rink, and there was a building next to it where you could rent ice skates, but I still have them.
And the clamp on that, you
This
didn't
is
have
what-
the fancy shoe.
I had
You
white
young
boots.
people probably haven't seen these, but that's what I put on my skates.
On your
And
shoes.
on my shoes, but here, she was a little wealthier than I was. She had her first, what do you call them,
Shoe
the
skates.
shoe
Shoe
skates.
skates,
She
yeah.
had her first shoe skates, so I would, isn't that romantic? I would sit down there and
Tie my shoes.
put on her shoe skates. So that was the one romantic thing down there. Now, here was the other one. That bridge that goes across the Blue River down there to Centennial Park, that was there at that time. And you could rent a rowboat under that bridge. And I took her in a rowboat ride up the Blue River. Isn't that romantic? It was
That's
flowing
wonderful.
away down there.
It was
That
cleaner
was-
then.
yeah.
It was blue.
So we were really into that. Then, what really came in, while we were students, and then even more so later when I came back as a faculty member at Concordia, were dancing. This was a dancing town. And one of the first dance halls that I remember as a student, I didn't have a girlfriend then, but that was down where the swimming pool is now, down in that area. Big, very nice dance hall there. And then, by the way, we were doing a lot with the National Guard building. Dancing in there was really popular later. Now, I have to say this, we were Lutherans, and when we were at Concordia, dancing was a sin, so we didn't dance. Would you believe within within about 5 years or so, she and I were ballroom dance instructors here in Seward. Our church let us not only dance, but let us, so
Even
we were
instruct.
dancing, we were
Yeah.
dance instructors under Southeast Community College. And one of the places where we taught dancing was in Dale's Steakhouse, down in the basement. It was a very popular dance place, and so,
Or in the middle school basement.
or the middle school, yeah.
Did you do the jitterbug?
Oh, yeah, all of it,
Yes.
yeah.
There we go.
But, so it was dancing. Then, by the way, of course, roller skating. That building just left recently, that was over there right south of Jones Bank. Very nice roller skating rink. What else did we do?
Movies.
I was gonna
Oh,
say,
and the same Rivoli Theater, and by the way, they know me down there. I'm always asking for the seat in the corner back there. And of course, now when we want to sit back there, she says, why? But I always sat back there in the corner at the Rivoli Theater. Yeah.
that's
So
wonderful.
it was a great place for, and by the way, we were not allowed to have cars at that time because our church body paid most of our tuition. And they said, then you can't afford a car, so we would walk downtown all the time.
Football games.
And by the way, you know where our football was being played? The rodeo arena, down in the park.
Now, this was Concordia
Concordia?
College's
College.
football team played down
So
in
the whole student body
Would
would
walk.
walk down to the
Very
park.
cold.
Yep.
Yes, yes.
But that was one time we could hold hands instead of walking. Otherwise, we weren't to touch each other.
Yeah, that's what, there's another thing that you mentioned when we were visiting one time. And when you were staying in the dorms at Concordia, and you said, tell me about the diversity and that the dorms had opened up their rooms to some of our returning soldiers or someone?
Oh, yes,
Or
yes.
visitors or?
Well, see, if you remember, I said I came to Concordia in 1945, August. That was the end of the Second World War. Within 6 months, in Jesse Hall, we had the first of the veterans coming back under the GI Bill. And they lived with us there. What a fantastic group of people. They had been all over the world. They were of course, older than we were, but they just really related to us, and we just had the best time. Now, would you believe, that was about 6 months later, would you believe within a year, one of the veterans that came into our dormitory there was a German fighter pilot, a veteran.
Oh my.
And he became my best friend because I was bilingual. I could speak German, and so he and I were friends. But that was a very unique period of time. Great. Of course, for us, it was just moving out all over the world because they had been.
Was he accepted?
Oh, yes.
As the folks got to know him,
Oh, yeah.
he was accepted,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
Because during the war, we remember that Germantown
Oh,
did
yeah.
change its name
That's
to
right.
Garland. But this was afterwards, and as they got to know him as an individual, everything worked
Yep.
out just fine. You also said that you had, during some times, you had some folks from Alabama,
Oh, yes.
Native Americans.
This is a real compliment to the city of Seward and to Concordia. I was in the admissions office in recruitment. Ted Janza was president of Concordia, a sociologist, and in 1965, remember the year, 1965, he said to me in recruitment, I want you to go to Selma, Alabama. And of course, I had never heard of Selma. And the Lutheran Church had just taken over a 2-year college down there. And of course, those students had to go someplace after 2 years. So that's why I went down there. Well, when I looked for the president's office was in the second floor of a warehouse, 1 block from a bridge. You heard of the bridge for the walk from Selma to Montgomery? That was 2 months before the walk across the bridge. And so that's the first group I had. And they came in here, and those were really the first Afro-Americans here in Seward. And I can't tell you enough about not only the reception on campus, but the community. You can imagine quite a few coming in here. The community really accepted them. And we had a lot of years and of great people. That was the Afro-American. Well, one of my good friends in Seward, T.R. Hughes, he worked with the Northern Cheyenne Native Americans. And out of that, and I of course got to know him, out of that came what we established as a Center for Indian Ministries and Studies. And so there we had Native Americans coming not only from Northern Cheyenne, but also from around here, again, into the community. In fact, we had 2 of them living in our basement. And we had what we called Indian powwows down in the park here. The community, again, just accepted.
Embraced.
So that was Native Americans. Then, you know how these strange things work. We had a husband and wife who graduated here, and they entered the Peace Corps, and they were placed in an island in the Pacific, in the area called Marshall Islands in Solomon, where the Second World War was played out in all these islands. And within a few months of their being there, I got a letter from a student in Marshall Islands. And you know what she said? I hear so many good things about Seward. Isn't that interesting? It's not only Concordia, but Seward. So after that, I traveled that whole area, and we eventually had 60 graduates from the Pacific Islands out there, and we know where all of them are all over the world. So that was another group coming in here, and again, people just really receiving them. And then the other one was Bob Fiala, who is still around here, was very active in international students with me, and so we had it from all over the world. But it's a compliment to this city, and by the way, it was also a real blessing to this city to get into this multicultural setting that we were in. Yeah.
I'm going to take advantage of the situation here just a little bit, and I didn't know that you were good friends with T.R. Hughes. And can you tell a little bit of the story of the part that he played Can you elaborate just a little bit on his herd of buffalo?
Well, he of course, I first saw the buffalo out north of town here, near where there was a golf course. That's where I first played golf, on that road north of town. You go east a little bit. Virginia Hughes still lives down
Waverly,
there.
yes.
And that's where the buffalo were. But then he had a really big herd up in Montana that was a buffalo ranch.
And I heard there was a little article when Mr. Hughes passed away that he had the closest to the original strain of the native buffalo on the plains.
Yeah, he was really known for that. He was well known. By the way, the other interesting thing is Concordia was ready to open a campus up there on the northern Cheyenne. In fact, I went up there with faculty members up there. We came that close to opening it, but they were under the Bureau of Indian Affairs funding from the United States government, and once in a while our government pulls money out, and that's what happened up there, or we would have had a branch campus in Lame Deer, Montana. So those are the what-ifs in your life. But I just can't say enough about having lived in this town and how the help I would get.
That's why the Micronesians didn't come back either. After the last class that graduated, the government pulled funds out too for them, so.
Well, see, where they lived, that was known after the war as the Trust Territory of the Pacific. That means that we really kind of owned it as a nation.
Yeah.
And then eventually these islands became their own governments. And then, of course, the money left, the United States money left there too. But still, we had that great experience of a lot of years in between, a lot of graduates in between. Very unique. Yeah.
It's really a blessing, Seward County. When you think of the size, first our low population in our whole state of Nebraska. And then you think that truly we only have about 17,000 people in our county. But we have 3 institutions of magnificent higher learning in our community. And you just can tell the trickle-down effect, can't you? We have Concordia University. We have the wonderful Southeast Community College at Milford that was started with the native Seward County. And then we have St. Gregory the Great Seminary. And so we are just truly blessed in our area.
By the way, a little side story here. My girlfriend, she was a townie. She came from town. She hadn't lived on a farm. I lived on a farm, and so after we dated here in 1949, a few months, I of course said, you gotta meet my parents. They're on a farm down there, so we're gonna go down to the farm.
How did you get down to the farm?
Guess what? Well, somebody took us down there. We didn't have somebody took us down. Now here's what happened. True story. Talk about a romantic story. Middle of the night, she came to my bedroom door.
Good
knocked
grief.
on the bedroom door and said, "You've got to walk with me to the outhouse." She had never been to an outhouse. And so I did that. Isn't that neat, walking out there? Well, when I got to the door, I said, "Remember, we don't use rolled toilet paper here. It's the Sears Roebuck catalog that's lying there on the floor."
There you go.
And then she was staying another night. My mother found out about this, and she gave her a chamber pot, for the next night.
Oh.
Those are those
See, those
romantic
are the
stories.
things we need, yes, we need to. And then we should go back here a little bit, because I'm hoping that you two did get married somewhere along the line here.
1953.
In 1953, and you and Seward became your home.
Well, then we left. Would you believe these Midwesterners, we were assigned to teaching position. The first one was Twin Falls, Idaho. What a great place to live in the Northwest. 3 years. Would you believe where we moved next? Providence, Rhode Island. Fantastic. New England.
Oh, wonderful.
But here's what just about happened. In Twin Falls, we had 2 boys. Then we went to Rhode Island. 6 years, we had 2 boys. When I said I just got an offer to go to Seward, she said, "I'm not going along."
So you folks you have 4 boys?
Yes.
4 sons. Wonderful.
And by the way, they're what we can say for all of us as parents, what a great place for children to live, especially now with the swimming pool open. My goodness, they were up on the high tower all the time down there. So
Wonderful.
great place to raise family.
Wonderful. You know now, and what did you do? What did you do? What did you teach? What was your area?
Well, I was in the teacher education department, so I spent 30 years visiting student teachers, and of course there I got into all the schools here in the Seward area, and the one that's now become the church down there, I visited more student teachers there than you can imagine, but I was all over the United States. But in addition to that, I was an administrator there in recruitment and so on, and very active in that.
You were over Concordia a long time,
Yeah,
weren't you? Yeah.
62 we came back.
Wonderful. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, I would add 2 things. We've been talking about Concordia quite a bit. Here's the other thing we found out, and one of my professors, Jay Jurgensen, Jay and Fritzie Jurgensen, some of you may remember, they lived in our street. He was a good friend of mine. I came back here in 62 as a professor, and in about 63, 64, he came to me and said, Jack, help me. We've got to get more faculty members with the Seward community because we're separated here like this. That's true in most towns like that. And you know what he said to me? I heard of a thing called Kiwanis. And neither one of us had ever really heard it. I'd like to try and start Kiwanis Club here, and we found people like John Cattle downtown and a few like that. And the purpose for it was to bring these groups together. Well, guess what? It has really worked, and it's still working today. That's the one that really brings the community together. Now, what did you do to get involved here with these 2 things? What did you join?
Oh, Women's Club.
Oh.
And then we helped a lot at the Seward Lead Center.
Seniors.
You know, helped
Yeah, we were
helping
there.
with dinners and things, and so we met a lot of people.
That,
Wonderful people.
the Women's Federated, the
Yes.
Women's Club,
Greater
really-
Women's,
yes,
yeah.
that really played a big role in
Yes.
Seward for a long time, didn't it? Now
I
the
think it's-
Junior Women's Club
Yeah.
is kind of carrying that on.
We still do a lot, though.
Okay.
But those were those great experiences where we really came together. By the way, we were talking about dancing, you know, where, when we remember the faculty, you know, where we danced then? The country club, every Friday night.
Really?
Boy, was that a mix of community and Concordia. And you know who was playing the piano and the trumpet? Vic and Betty Gravel. We
No,
had
I
live
don't.
music.
Tell me a little bit about
Oh,
that.
yeah, every Friday night, that place was just filled, and we ate there. And then we had a dance floor, and these 2 were playing. What a neat experience for bringing community together, and then we were talking about dancing before. And then we had big events there, luau's and so on. I'm so happy to see things happening out there again, because for us, it really was a great
It was a
place
good
of community here in Seward. Yeah.
From all of the couples that we interviewed, that we talked to, dancing played such a huge part, and I do remember that part of our lives too. It was such a community mixer, and it was great fun, and it was a place for everybody to congregate, and it wasn't a separation of folks, it was just everybody. And that went on for 20 to 30 years in the Midwest, don't you think? It had a strong social role in a community. Right. Well, folks, I thank you so much. This was great. This is another continuation, and we're doing this for posterity. And we're going to get, because these are wonderful memories, wonderful parts of our history. Good to get them down. Thank you so much.
Good, welcome.
So, how'd we do, Lori? Did we get it?
29 minutes and 50 seconds.
Is that, we only had 30 minutes.
Both of us were teachers, we were always used to that.
Okay. Oh, Glennie, we didn't get that in there. I didn't know that you got your degree, and what did you teach?
Well, I finally did. I had the 2 years,
Uh-huh.
and
That's right, we could teach, you
Uh,
folks could teach with a 2-year degree.
that's
Well,
right. Then I went out and taught at Hastings for 2 years,
Okay.
and then we got married,
Uh-huh.
and I taught in Twin Falls then for a year.
And where?
Twin Falls, Idaho.
Oh, out there,
Uh-huh.
okay.
And then when
What
we
did
came
you
back,
teach?
pardon?
What did you teach?
In Hastings I had 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and the others I had 1st and 2nd. But I was also their organist, and
Good work, did the good work.
yeah. So when we came back here, then I went back to school
Okay.
and graduated. When our 3rd son graduated the same day as I did, I from college and from high school. So I didn't teach after that.
What's that?
I didn't teach after that. I started working at St. John's as secretary for 15 years.
Oh, I didn't know that
And
either.
then after that, I worked at the Lutheran office
Mhm.
for 13. And then we both in 93 retired in August 31 and went out with Labors for Christ for
That's where we
5
lived
years.
in a trailer for 5 years, building churches and schools, Hurricane Andrew homes, things like that, all the way from Florida to California. If you ever want to see the United States, do it that way. 5 years, so you lived in a place like Miami for 6 months, and then you really called that home. And by the way, we were known as the weird ones. The others were with us from Iowa and so on. We would always, they would eat in Perkins and so on. We would always find Peruvian restaurant and so on. We just,
You
that's a
wanted
great
to
way
taste
to
the
see
world.
United
That's
States.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But here again, Seward comes in. We even had a place in Mesa, Arizona for winters for 5 years. She's the one who said, I want to go back to Seward.
Oh,
Yeah. She wanted to go back.
well, your heart was here.
my friends.
And your friends? Yes, yes. We're off record here a little bit. You can brag. Tell me about a little bit where your kids are all at.
Well, our oldest son is in Denver. He was a Lutheran high school teacher,
Okay.
and he has retired and is off doing odd jobs.
Okay.
And our second son passed away in '98. He had a brain
He worked for Miller Odell
Oh.
Construction, so he was built
from
a lot.
16 until he was
By the
in
way,
his 40s.
he and the oldest son helped build the pyramid over here at Davison's.
Yeah.
They have their
Oh,
picture was there, they were
wonderful.
building the pyramid.
Yeah.
Oh, that's important too. That's great. Okay.
And our third son is an architect. He
Okay.
lives in Maryland, and he's been all over the world. He was in Benghazi when that broke out,
Really?
and he was out within 2 days. They came in to Benghazi, and 20 of his people couldn't make it, so they had to come in by night and get his staff out.
Okay.
And so he's worked lots of different places.
Is
Our
he the
third
one
son-
then that was involved in building the world's tallest skyscraper?
Well, he started on it. Yes, he
Okay,
did.
he was involved with it.
And our third son retired as a lieutenant commander in the Navy. He was
No, he was with-
Special Forces.
He was with Special Forces, Navy SEALs, and in fact, he was with all of the men who killed Osama bin Laden. Not anymore then, but he
Retired.
knew all the guys who did that. Really had a great career. And by the way, the other right thing he did, married a girl from B, Nebraska, Kathy Karish.
There we go.
She had never been out of B.
Oh,
And
and
she
they got her
loved
Navy.
military life.
Oh.
Their first house, can you imagine this B girl, their first house was
Chula Vista.
Chula Vista, looking out over Tijuana, Mexico. And she loved it.
Oh.
She has just really done
Isn't
it.
that wonderful?
Right
So
choice.
after 30 years, and now he's retired. So,
And did you just say that you had a reunion, or were they home last week?
Mhm.
Oh, we had a wedding,
But they were all
big
home.
party.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, guys. This is, I know it's a hassle. Thanks for putting up with my technological difficulties here. And then so that you know, when you, because of little Jessica, Arena, I gotta remember that her last name is Arena. She's been so kind, and you can go just to the internet now, to YouTube.com, and look up Tallgrass Prairie stories, and then we can see them. So they're not edited. Someday Jill and Lori and I, we're going to add pictures, and we're going to have zooming in and zooming out, and NAT is just going to be jealous.
I do have to ask for one more thing, so I said, I need a washerwoman, you know why?
This is cute.
And we were students here, the men's dorm did not have washers and dryers, the women's dorm did. And so after a few months, she was good enough to say to me, I'll take your stuff to the dorm and I'll wash it for you. Well, the dorm had the dean of women living in it, true story. She caught her and she
Smuggling
said,
men's
stop
clothing.
immediately, don't you ever do that again because you're handling his underwear.
There.
She hasn't washed my underwear for 63 years.
Oh,
I hope someone has.
Good Lord. That's okay. Oh gosh, this
You
was
gotta
just
laugh
great.
about it all.
Oh yes, what
It
wonderful.
wasn't very funny at the time.
Oh, probably so embarrassing, probably. I remember those times, right? It couldn't even say some things,
Oh,
yeah. And I must have just missed that time in there where you couldn't wear slacks.
Well, yeah, I mentioned that.
You did?
But we had only 5 times a year, or was it semester, where we could go beyond our hours. Because we had to be in our rooms from 9:30, from 7 to 9:30. And then we had a half hour off to go to the bookstore where he worked. And then we came back for devotion and we were in bed by 10.
Wow.
But we only had 5, I think it was the semester, or maybe it was the whole year, of hours where we could go beyond 10. We could go 12.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Isn't it just something?
By the way, can you imagine Concordia up there without any fast food place, just a dining hall? You know how Seward again helped us? Bob Hicks. Did any of you know Bob
I
Hicks?
kind of remember that name.
Bob Hicks had a house that's still there on the corner of Moffett and Columbia. That house is still there. He
Gene
opened,
Hicks's father.
Gene Hicks's father.
Oh, okay.
He opened a lunch room in his house.
Oh, for
And we
heaven's sake.
just all came down. We imagine stopping there and having, well, it kind of became Concordia's lunchroom. Well, the other neat thing was our house was around there with all the faculty members growing like this. So our grocery store was right up on Moffett and 3rd Street up there, Hand's Grocery.
Oh, that building is still there, isn't it?
That's
Yeah.
where we bought all of our groceries with all these boys. And when Hand Grocery, when they opened up this other one down there, and I talked about history